At 6:20 p.m., Karen Thompson was pounding on my brand new steel gate like it had personally betrayed her, screaming at the keypad, screaming at me and performing for the TV camera parked across the road. "Open it right now," she shrieked, face red hair coming loose, pointing at my driveway like it was public property. The deputy beside her didn't yell back. He just said, calm as a man ordering coffee. Ma'am stepped back, and in that moment, I realized something most people never learn until it's too late. A gated paradise can become a cage in one bad decision. I didn't buy my ranch to start a feud with a homeowners association. I bought it because I wanted quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you breathe deeper without thinking, the kind of quiet that doesn't come with a monthly newsletter telling you how tall your grass is allowed to be. I'd worked around property law for years, so I'm the annoying guy who reads every line before signing. And when I closed on 50 acres outside a place called Pine Valley, I read everything twice. The listing was all sunsets and pine trees and country charm. But the real headline was one paragraph in the closing packet. Pine Valley's entire neighborhood relied on one paved road that cut across the back edge of my land to reach the main highway. Their right to use that road came from an old easement agreement dated 1847, written in plain language, with a condition most people skip right past they could pass through as long as they didn't interfere with the landowner's rights. Most buyers would have seen that and thought, okay, fine, some historical paperwork, whatever. I saw it and thought, that's a safety switch, and I'm going to keep it within reach because people get weird when they think community means control. 3 days after closing, Karen showed up on my porch like she'd been personally appointed to supervise my existence. It was 7:30 a.m. I had coffee in my hand and dust on my boots, still in that new owner honeymoon, where even an old barn feels like a fresh start. My doorbell camera chimed, and there she was, navy blazer clipboard, stuffed with highlighted pages and sticky notes, posture rigid like a principal about to hand out detention. No hello, no welcome, no congrats on the new place. She opened with, "We need to discuss your obligations to this community," like she was talking to an employee, not a stranger on his own porch. Then she started listing them like a menu. Paint colors require HOA approval. Fence height cannot exceed 6 feet. Noise is strictly enforced between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. No livestock visible from the road. No commercial vehicles parked overnight. She looked past me, actually peering over my shoulder at my living room, like she was inspecting it for violations. I let her finish because sometimes you learn more by letting someone talk. Then I said politely, "Ma'am, I'm not in your HOA." Karen's smile tightened. "You'll be using our road," she replied, emphasizing our. Like the word could override my deed. "Your activities affect our property values. You benefit from our infrastructure." I took a sip of coffee and asked, "Have you read the easement agreement?" She laughed, sharp and dismissive. "I don't need 19th century documents," she said. "This is modern community planning." I asked, "Did you know easement rights can be suspended or terminated if there's substantial interference?" Her face twitched like she wasn't used to hearing sentences that didn't end with her winning. "Absolutely not," she snapped. "You cannot cut off an entire neighborhood. Are you threatening families? We have lawyers. We have resources. We don't respond well to bullying." I wasn't trying to start a war. I was clarifying reality. "Ma'am, I said hundreds of vehicles cross my land daily. That's courtesy, not obligation." For a split second, fear flickered behind her eyes, but pride ran the show. "This is far from over," she snapped, spun around, and marched away like she'd won a round. By the next morning, she'd turned her ego into a campaign. At 600 a.m., my cameras caught Karen and 2 board members walking my fence line with tape measures, snapping photos like they were building a case file. By lunchtime, she'd filed complaints with the county about unauthorized agricultural operations I hadn't even started. Then the online posts came rolling in. In her version, I was an outsider, aggressive threatening families, and she was protecting the community. She held emergency meetings, sent mass emails, and worked the crowd like a politician who only knows one move. Fear. It would have been almost funny if it wasn't my real life. Then she escalated into surveillance with a budget. Residents started taking shifts along the easement with radios and notepads like they were guarding a border crossing. New security cameras appeared on the HOA side of the property line, all angled straight toward my house and barn. Karen called it community safety. I called it harassment in high definition. You know that feeling when you step outside and you can feel eyes on you. Yeah, that happened. And after a few days, it stops being annoying and starts feeling like you don't own your own air anymore. The real turning point came with the checkpoint. One morning, I drove down the easement and found 2 private security guards, a folding table, and a sign that read, "Resident sticker required. No sticker towing enforced." On my property. One guard stepped into my lane like he was stopping traffic for a parade. "Sir, you need a valid Pine Valley sticker to proceed," he said, looking at a clipboard that might as well have had Karen's signature on it. I pointed through the trees. "That's my house," I said. "This is my land." He hesitated and went back to the script. "Ma'am Thompson's instructions are clear. No sticker, no entry." I didn't argue with the guards. I did the boring, powerful thing. I called the county planning department on speaker. "Someone installed unauthorized access controls on a private easement," I said. The woman on the line didn't hesitate. "Private parties cannot restrict access to a legal easement," she told me. "We'll send an inspector." I looked at the guard and said, almost kindly, "You might want to call Karen. This is about to get expensive." 2 days later, the inspector arrived. Karen met him at the edge of the HOA with a binder, like she was about to argue the Supreme Court in the dirt. She gave a speech about maintenance community funds protecting families. The inspector listened, then asked one question that cut through all of it. "Ma'am, do you have legal authority to control access? On this easement Karen tried, we pay for upkeep." The inspector shook his head. "That's not access control." He handed her a violation notice with a deadline and real numbers attached to it, and I watched her face for the first crack of reality. It was there. She just refused to accept it. That should have ended it. It didn't. Karen hired a law firm and told residents she was defending the community. A longtime resident named Maria Collins quietly told me what the attorney actually said. "He told her she's dead wrong," Maria whispered. "Legally indefensible. He told her to apologize and negotiate before she destroys us." Karen ignored him because Karen didn't want a solution. She wanted surrender. So I stopped waiting for her to act like an adult. I sent certified letters to every home in Pine Valley, documenting the interference, referencing the 1847 conditions, and warning that organized obstruction could trigger termination. Then Maria did something Karen never expected. At the next emergency meeting, Maria stood up and asked loud enough for everyone to hear. "Did you tell them what the lawyer actually said?" Karen tried to laugh it off. Maria didn't let her. "He said we have no standing. He said we could lose everything if you keep escalating. You're gambling with our homes because you can't admit you were wrong." The room shifted. You could feel it. People started murmuring, then arguing, then turning on Karen in real time, and you could literally watch her grip on the room slip. That was the twist Karen never saw coming. Her own neighbors were done being her audience. That night, Maria called me, voice shaky. She's planning a convoy, she said. A demonstration. She wants everyone to drive your road together to prove you can't intimidate us. I actually laughed once, not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly predictable. Maria, I said that's organized interference. She's about to hand me proof. Maria went quiet. Can you really terminate access? I told her the truth. If the conditions are met, yes. And she's sprinting toward them. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen window with coffee, my phone camera charged, and the sheriff's number ready. At 8:00 a.m., the convoy rolled out Karen in front with handmade signs about community rights, dozens of cars behind her, crawling at 5 miles per hour. Then she stopped the entire line halfway through my property. Engines idled. Horns started up behind them. Karen climbed out with a megaphone, like she was hosting a rally, and yelled, "This road belongs to all of us." She talked about freedom, about standing together, about not being bullied, while 50 cars sat on my easement blocking normal traffic like her ego had its own lane. I recorded the time, the plates, the stop, the speech, the obstruction, and then I called the sheriff. Deputy Miller arrived, watched about 10 seconds, then looked at me and said, "This your property?" I handed him the easement paperwork and said, "Yes, sir, and they're obstructing it on purpose." He walked up to Karen with calm authority. "Ma'am, I need your driver's license," he said. Karen smiled like she was on a stage. "Officer, we're exercising our constitutional rights," she said. Deputy Miller's voice stayed flat. "Ma'am, you're obstructing a private roadway. Move your vehicles and give me your license." Karen leaned in louder, because that's always her move. "You can't arrest us for using our own road." Deputy Miller didn't raise his voice. "It's not your road," he said. "Turn around." She kept yelling. He repeated it once. She kept yelling. Then he stepped in, turned her, cuffed her. And that sound, the click of metal locking, turned the whole convoy silent like someone hit mute. People in those cars suddenly realized they weren't in a brave movie moment. They were in a police report. By Monday, with the police report and video in hand, I filed a termination notice with the county clerk. Effective Wednesday at 6 p.m. Access would end until the interference stopped, and the HOA removed every illegal control and surveillance measure. That decision didn't feel like victory. It felt heavy because I knew there were families behind that gate who never asked to be part of Karen's war, and I hated that they were stuck in the blast radius of her pride. Karen went on TV and called me a terrorist, promised emergency lawsuits, promised federal intervention, all the big dramatic words that sound powerful until a judge reads the actual paperwork and says no. At 6:00 p.m., Wednesday, the gates closed. 20 minutes later, Karen was at my gate, pounding and screaming exactly like the opening, demanding I open it, like I was her employee. A reporter asked if any of this could have been avoided with an apology. Karen snarled, "We don't negotiate with terrorists," and I remember thinking the irony is going to bury you. Late that night, she made her final worst choice. She and a handful of supporters came back with bolt cutters, and when that didn't work, my cameras caught Karen pouring gasoline near the gatehouse and trying to light it like arson was just another HOA enforcement tool. The fire department arrived before anything spread, but the intent was clear and the charges were real. That was the moment this stopped being HOA drama and became a criminal case with her name on it. 2 days later, Maria Collins walked up my driveway with dozens of residents. No signs, no shouting, just exhausted faces. She handed me a letter signed by households who wanted their lives back. Karen was removed from every HOA position, barred permanently, and they offered restitution for damages and legal costs. Then an 8-year-old boy stepped forward with a crayon drawing of my ranch and the gate open. "I'm sorry. Our president lady was mean," he said. "Can you please open it so my grandma can visit? I won't lie." That little drawing hit harder than any legal argument. I agreed to reopen limited access under written conditions while the new board cleaned house and the county confirmed compliance. And for the first time since I'd bought that land, I felt like I could breathe on my own porch again. And the last time I saw Karen, she was walking into court with her jaw clenched and her eyes still convinced she was the victim. That's the part that should feel satisfying, right? The bully finally meets consequences. But here's what I want you to wrestle with. I had the power to shut down their only road, and I used it. I used it because Karen escalated, because she harassed and obstructed and lied until the law had to intervene, because she ignored every off-ramp that could have protected her own neighbors. Still, families behind that gate suffered before accountability arrived. And that's not something you celebrate. So tell me what you think. Was this justice, or did I go too far by pulling the one lever I knew would force the truth into the open? If you lived in Pine Valley, would you have followed Karen into that convoy? Or would you have been the person who stood up earlier and shut her down before it ever got this bad? Drop your take in the comments. And if you've ever dealt with an HOA power trip, tell me the wildest. I can't believe this is real moment you've seen. I read those, and I promise you're not alone. If you enjoyed the story, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves a little justice with their drama.